Sciences, and we, more than just me, come on up crew. We have some students, faculty, joining us to talk over the next 30 minutes about some unique things about the School of Interdisciplinary Arts and Sciences. We don't really want to get into the details that is totally published on our website, so if you do have specific questions like, what GPA do I need? What classes are offered? All of that is available on our IAS website, and so we totally invite you to look at that information and then connect with your advisor if you do have technical questions. But what we are here and prepared to do is answer 2 questions. All of us want to tell you what is unique or special about one of the majors that is represented by our students today. And then one thing we want students to know about IAS. Is that right? Are those questions in general? Yeah, okay. So I will let my crew get started thinking about their answers. Once we share that, what we hope is that the rest of our time together is spent answering questions for you. One of the biggest challenges that the School of IAS really tries to overcome at Buffalo is eliminating all of the different pathways to different occupations that you can gain access to in IAS. So we do hope that whatever information we share today can get you interested in different ways to get to the dream job of your choice. So any questions that you have that we can answer would be appreciated. My name officially is Ava Navarrijo. I lead the academic advising team for the School of IAS, and I advise for our environment majors. We have Earth System Science, Environmental Studies, and Environmental Science. I also advise for our Mathematical Thinking and Visualization major, Science, Technology, and Society, and then also 2 more, Culture, Literature, and the Arts, and American and Ethnic Studies. So I'm going to pass the mic to my crew on the right. They're going to introduce themselves, and then maybe we'll bring it back and answer the questions.
I'm Alex. I'm an Earth System Science major.
Hi everyone, my name is Cameron, and I'm studying Environmental Studies, and I'm graduating spring.
I'm Ben Gardner. I'm a professor in IAS. I teach classes in global studies, environmental studies, and cultural studies, and I'm also currently the acting dean of IAS.
I'm Margaret Redsteer, and I am an assistant professor here. I have done a lot of research on climate change, and I teach classes in natural disasters, environmental issues, and climate change adaptation.
Our last panelist is going to join us and answer the question and introduce himself last. But Alex, maybe we'll start with you to answer 2 questions.
Sure, so the first question is something I find valuable about, I guess.
The major, yeah.
Sure, that's more helpful. One thing I find truly valuable, unique, or important about the IAS major. Something about Earth System Science or environmental science in general is that rather than focusing, like going down a narrow path on a certain topic, is that in IAS you can really utilize other majors to kind of get a holistic approach towards solving problems rather focusing on studying like a subject. Pretty much all the classes I've taken in the last 2 years usually focus on teamwork to solve a problem. I don't know. I really should prepare for it.
It's okay.
Something to consider is communication with your peers is very important because you're going to be working with communications majors, global studies majors, all these kind of different studies. As an environmental science or environmental studies majors, it's very rare that you will be the majority in your class. So it's very important to kind of be able to work with a mixed bag or a variety of different majors. Yeah.
So one thing that I find truly valuable about environmental studies is that it's helped me learn to look towards the far future. That kind of sounds really ambitious, but despite living in a society that lives and believes in the present, so how we're all thinking of living in the here and now, thinking what we're going to eat for lunch tomorrow, what we're going to do in a week, I've kind of learned through this major to look into the future and not just look at what's going to affect me here and now or in the future. One thing that you should know if you're considering a major or minor in IAS is that you shouldn't expect everything that you learn to be in just one narrow-minded field. You're going to be learning, as the major or the school says, interdisciplinary, different kind of ways of thinking. So you're going to be, again, working with other majors, not just in an environmental major. So be prepared to see your major in different viewpoints, different ways, and different ways.
Great, thanks. So yeah, I'll just add a little bit. I think one of the things that might distinguish IAS from maybe some of the other majors, although I think a lot of majors incorporate some of this, is that in whatever career path you choose, whatever you go on, you're going to need some basic skills, and those skills include communication, collaboration, writing, leadership, and critical thinking skills. And so I think different programs approach the idea of critical thinking in different ways. And I like to think of it in this way, right? You might be in college to learn a set of skills and you want to go into a career where you have those skills. But it's also important to ask critical questions about the field you're going into. So I tell students that if you're in a job interview and you are actually want to be a coder, you want to do computer programming, yes, they're going to be interested in your technical skills, but they're also going to be interested if you have critiques of the entire system, if you have a critical way to think about what's good and bad about our industry, right? What are the ethical consequences of what we're doing? That may not be what we're being hired for in that moment, but employers are interested in people who can think more broadly than just the task in front of them. And that's also how you're going to advance in your career. So there's a lot of data out there that, certain majors, it's easier to get your first job because you have a set of skills. But a lot of the data shows that over time, students with a sort of more liberal arts education where they're good thinkers, they know how to come up with original questions, they know how to work with others, they know how to learn, those are the students who eventually get promoted and eventually get the higher job. So not that this is a competition among all schools, but I do think there's a lot of information out there that says, do this major, you'll get the best job, you'll get the best salary. But if you think long term, there's a lot to say for a major that really focuses on critical thinking skills, writing skills, reading skills, and that, all the IAS majors, whether they be the more scientific ones or the more social science ones or humanities ones, are going to emphasize that.
And I would emphasize that just once more. Because another issue with going into a single major is that a lot of times by the time you have finished the degree course that you're in, the job market and the emphasis of what kinds of fields people are really looking for has changed. So somebody who is much more mobile in the workforce, who is really able to think on their feet and work well with others is really what employers are looking for. And I came to IAS as a new employee last year after working for 20 years as research scientist for the federal government on climate change, on outlining natural hazards. For instance, my first job there was to actually put together the earthquake database for the state of Nevada. So my career has changed, of course, many times. But over my career, the one thing that I have learned is that a narrow field of focus does not actually help us answer some of the critical issues that we are facing today. We really have to have the perspective of people from social sciences, from physical sciences, from geochemistry, from all of these different fields, from biology, in order to really answer a lot of the really difficult questions we're facing, like climate change. Climate change projections are not just physical science projections, they're also projections about today's economy and what people value. That's how we decide how much of a carbon impact we're having in the future. So even today, we know that scientists who are working on difficult issues like climate change, like environmental issues, have to have broad perspectives and input from a lot of different fields. And IAS gives you an opportunity to do that while you're still in school and to start building that broader perspective of how your field meshes with other disciplines.
Hi everyone, my name is Dimitri. I'm also an environmental science major. And I actually think my colleagues hit it right on the spot. I mean, everything they talked about is very important. Starting with, so I'm also an IAS in environmental science, and starting with just one thing that is like a very big theme in IAS is group work and other themes that translate really well to going on, you know, working in your job. And what IAS does also really well is to challenge you to think about multiple side of things. So as my friends know, that it's never really just one-sided. You know, you can't never just look at one side of the story. You have to look at both, and there's a lot of gray areas. And IAS challenges you to think about that with your colleagues, and I think that's very important going into your fields, because it's never going to be a very simple problem. It's never going to be just something you can solve right away. So I think that IAS majors do a great job of getting you ready for the next step and getting you ready for your careers.
Great. So now we want that to ask questions. So maybe one thing we can do, because I know sometimes it's hard to be that person to raise your hand, is maybe turn to your neighbor and just take about a minute to think about a question you might have, either about IAS in general, or especially about this question of how might an environmental major in IAS look different than a similar major maybe in the STEM field. So go ahead and take a minute, turn to your neighbor, come up with a question, and then we'll take a handful of those questions.
It's just high.
For video.
Well, it has to be plugged in. I can't do it. No, that's all right.
You got our profile.
No, I got. Yeah, you were in, but it's really close, so it'll be.
Heads up, probably put you on the spot.
As part of like
Alright, so we'll stop you there. And I will say, if you're in an IAS class, you're going to do a lot of this. So there is not an IAS class that you won't have to talk, read, write. So if you are thinking, I just want to sit in the back of the class and take notes, one, that's not going to work for most majors, but it's definitely going to work as an IAS major. So if that's frightening, it's okay, because it's actually, I think, some of the skills you have to build. So why don't we do this? Why don't we take a bunch of different questions, and then each person could maybe answer the ones that they could address the most. So why don't we, and this is always nice because you've talked to your neighbor, so if you're shy, you could always just tell us the question that your neighbor had. So why don't we start in the back here? Maybe a couple questions from back there. Yeah. Here, I'll come down and I'll gather the questions for the stage here. Okay, how about a few questions? What did your neighbors ask? Yep, there you go.
After you guys graduate, what do you plan to do with your future?
Okay, let's collect a few, so this will be a great one for the students. So, what do you plan to do after your major? Awesome. How about here? And I heard you talking, so... No questions? How about over here? What do you guys talk about? Yep.
What kind of jobs can you have some of your graduates gotten into?
Okay, so for the students, what they hope to do, maybe for the faculty and advisors' jobs people have gotten into. How about up here? What did you guys talk about? You really have a solid question. Okay, that's good. Okay, how about over here? Yeah, okay, come on. What do you guys talk about? What's the question back here?
what made you want to pursue your major in the first place?
Great, okay. So what drew you to this major? This is great. Okay. How about back here? Yeah. Okay, great question. So what does it mean IAS? How does IAS incorporate arts, for example, into science? So what does interdisciplinary look like maybe in our majors or environmental studies? That's great. Maybe one more question from back here. Anything else that you guys talked about that we didn't come up with? No? No? Okay, is that enough to go with? So does everyone just want to take sort of what feels most appropriate? Okay.
All right. So the reason I got into IAS is because I'm from Monroe, and I've seen it change from pretty much just a small town like forested area into a high-density residential neighborhoods, just being scoured everywhere. So I've always wanted to solve the problem or ask the question, what is the environmental impact and how can that be mitigated, or what can I do to kind of lessen the effects of the impacts of human change on these environments. Yeah.
What about the question of what you think you might do with your degree?
So I hope to get into either a local organization or perhaps a government organization such as the Department of Ecology or something to kind of have a direct impact to be able to focus on these questions. Sorry, I'm just thinking of the other question of how art is incorporated into IAS. I think that's really important because IAS has a lot of focus on like why these issues matter, or there's a lot of interpretation that can be associated with data collection, because data itself is just numbers and it doesn't really matter. But say if you're looking at a map, it's up to the person to decide what matters or what the data means, and they have to be able to explain that information to other people in an effective manner to come about change. Yeah.
Great.
Sure.
I just want to add something about the how does art and science maybe intersect in IAS. I just sent out an email to all of our environment majors about this really exciting crossover event next quarter. One environmental class is going to work with a media and communications class. We're going to have the environment majors figure out all the science stuff about soil, what's going on with soil, how is it, well actually I have no idea what's happening. They're going to do something, right, with local area soil sites in King County, and then they're going to toss all of their data to the media and communication students who are going to be the artistic vision to create vision boards, storyboards. They're going to use their skills in video production and audio design and actually create videos that explain why workers who are working with the soil, whatever the outcome is, I don't know, fill in the blank because they're going to do the work, but whatever that outcome is, those videos are then going to be packaged and used by King County for actual employee training. And so like that's one way in which our majors are collaborating together, bringing together different skill sets, and then actually making an impact in the community and putting this like work to use. And so both students in MCS, our media major, and our environment majors are going to be able to walk away with really practical, hands-on experience for King County that's going to be on the resume, and that's huge for employment. So that's just one way that you can see how arts and science works together in IAS to create really awesome opportunity. Back to you.
So to give you all an idea of how environmental studies or an environment major can play out in the real world, I always know that students are asking, what are you going to do after college? What am I going to do after college? And that's always the big question. And I promise you that's going to change so many times throughout however many years you're here or in the future. But for me, I really wanted to go into conservation management or into sustainability department at a big corporation. So those are two very, very specific things, and I know that it'll be hard to get into, but as soon as I get my foot into the door of some kind of either related internship or job, I know I can push my skills into another area or field that I'm interested in. That's just how I see being able to move into the future after I graduate. Of course, I know that environmental majors are very, very specific majors, so compared to something like business, education, economics, those are kind of flexible. They're something that you can really apply to different fields, but environment is like a very, very specific field, and so you'll have to just really persevere if you're interested in that. And again, have that broader view as an IAS student to expand your skills and make yourself a valuable member of any kind of job you're competing for.
I also go back to the first question of what got me interested in environmental science or my major in IAS. And I was born in the Republic of Georgia in Eastern Europe, and I was raised there until I was 10. And there was a lot of environmental issues that people weren't thinking about because of the rural country, and it's just in the back of their minds. And growing up there and coming here, and I was always fascinated with the environment and natural beauty. And just seeing those issues that are happening in those countries, and as well as even here in the US, just really got me interested in. And I always knew I didn't want to do something where I was stuck in office too long. So I naturally just went with environmental science, and I'm very pleased that I did so far. And I'm excited to what's going to happen. So probably something that I'm looking into for my future career is something that hands-on and something that will have an influence on the environment or people's health and so on. And lastly, for the arts question, I thought it was a great question. One of my hobbies is actually filmmaking, and a hobby I haven't gotten into too much this last 4 years. However, I think that filmmaking and other forms of arts is a great way to showcase some of these issues that are going on, because they're a lot more easily introverted, but easily seen by people who, it's a lot easier to see it through a film or through a picture or through a map than it is to throw stats at just regular people who haven't really necessarily heard of these issues. So I think arts is a very important part of environmental science and most of other IAS majors.
So, as I mentioned earlier, I'm fairly new to IAS, but even so, I can already see pathways and trajectories for the students who graduate that are really meaningful in environmental issues. For example, a student that I had in my climate change adaptation class last year is actually doing her senior work on producing a climate change adaptation plan for the city of Bothell. So that will give her real life experience, will help us to assist the city of Bothell in a really meaningful way and help pave the way for her to do some really practical work that is needed across this country. There are many, many municipalities that are working on climate change adaptation plans, even though the federal government hasn't put any specific policy in place. And so there are some cutting edge things that are opportunities in IAS through our engagement with local communities that can really allow students to do some very meaningful things even before they graduate.
Great, yeah, so this is so fun to hear students and other faculty talking about the program. I'll just add one little thing. I think you also don't always know what you're going to discover on a major, so it's really, that question was great, like, why did you do this? I think, the reality is you're not going to know what it all is going to look like at the end. And so I think sometimes why you do it is you're interested, you're passionate, you care. That's a good enough reason to choose a major. And I would say, for example, in a lot of our environmental studies majors or our mathematical thinking and visualization majors, a lot of our students take classes in what's called GIS, which is called Geographic Information Systems. Most of those students don't have any experience with computer programming or mapping, but they'll leave our program having taken 1, 2, possibly more quarters in different sort of geographic visualization skills. And one thing I've seen over the last several years is a lot of our students have gotten jobs because they have those skills. So in our program at our school, we don't have a major in planning, in urban planning, in any of that sort of stuff, but a lot of our students realize, they find out through these environmental majors that they can gain skills that then become really useful to the sorts that Margaret just spoke about. So I just say that there are probably things you may learn and discover along the way that you don't even know about yet. So some of you have it all mapped out, some don't even know where to begin, and my advice would be find the thing that you're most interested in, right? You're going to spend the next 2 or 3 years taking classes, having discussions, reading a lot. better to do it the thing that is that you would prefer to spend time doing. And along the way, you're going to find there are skills. It's your ideas and your understanding of the major and what you want to do will transform over the time in college.
We have 4 more minutes before our team exits the stage. Burning questions. What is another question that we can answer? Your teachers are in the room. While you're thinking about the last question, I'll tell you maybe 2 more things that I think are really exciting. When you work in college, you have to read a lot of stuff about like where college graduates end up working and what do employers look for. In 2018, Google revitalized one of their new projects. If you have homework, you might look up Project Oxygen. And what they found is that in Google, this is a tech-based industry, they do a lot of work, they do a lot of mapping work. Their top managers, of the top 10 skills that made them most valuable to Google, which means they get that Google money, only 1 of those top 10 things had anything to do with technical expertise. Everything else had to do with ability to lead a team, ability to think critically, ability to be creative. So all of the interdisciplinary aspects of an IAS major is numbers 1 through 9 for Google. We also looked at another survey of every college graduate in 2018 who graduated in a major similar to IAS. The most common job held by those graduates was management, which means management money. And so, once again, the type of skills that managers need to lead teams are, again, being able to collaborate with others, solve problems, think outside of the box and work with people. The other phrase you might want to look for is this concept called robot-proof. That's a huge conversation in the employer world right now. There's some speculation out there that we cannot even predict the type of jobs that you will be applying for in just a short amount of time. The technology is expanding so fast that we don't even know what skills our college graduates might need. However, they've also been able to predict that to be robot-proof, which means that a robot won't do your job, you have to have skills like critical thinking, working with humans, being able to solve problems and think outside of the box. So all of the additional work that happens in an interdisciplinary major is another way to safeguard your prospects for employment in a variety of fields. So many offices and industries need managers. Prepare for that, right? Choose a major that gives you the expertise and the skill set so that it's relevant and aligned, but prepare for management. Because the data that we're seeing says that when you have an IAS degree and you have the career competencies that Google most values in managers, you're likely going to be leading projects. You're likely going to be managing projects. So IAS would love to talk to you more about what it means to gain an interdisciplinary education that incorporates, expertise in a specific discipline or field, but also all of the other competencies that we know people thrive with in the workplace. That is time, probably. So the next team is, I think, in the room. Is that you all? All right. IAS, 3 letters, Google it. You'll find our email. If you have any follow-up questions, we are there to answer them. Hand clap, thank you.